Here we have verse 22 of the 24th chapter, Gospel of Matthew. Jesus has just told his disciples that the days that are going to be describing the fall of Jerusalem will be the worst in all of human history, an unprecedented, irrepeatable, a unique moment in human history, and yet at the same time we have a little hint of grace even in this context, as Jesus describes now, beginning in verse 22, kai, connective, ame, if not, literally, unless, is usually the way it's rendered, e kolobothesan. This is from koloboo, which means to cut short. It's actually rooted in an underlying verb, kolazo, which means to punish, and so the sense of punishing is cutting someone short in some sense or other. And out of that derives this word, not necessarily implying punishment, but a kind of cutting short of something. In this case, it's days. The days of this vengeance that are being described. So unless they had been cut short, the subject of this passive verb, hi hemerai, akenai, the days, those. So unless those days, the days Jesus is describing here, were cut short, uk on, not the on introduces a subjunctive idea. The subjunctive isn't used here, but the conditionality is still implied within it. Not any would be saved, not even one. You might insert the idea of even there, not even. And then esothe from sozo, save. This is the passive, so it would not be saved. Pasa in the singular, all flesh. Usually it's rendered all flesh, but it's not even as the idea, not even one flesh. Wouldn't be good English, of course, but that's the idea. It's a rather emphatic way to say it. Unless those days had been cut short, not one would be saved. Probably describing, again, the intensity of the siege of Jerusalem. 1 million people or so did die in that siege, and yet many others survived. They didn't have a happy lot in life for a while. They were hauled off into various forms of slavery and so on as an ongoing punishment. And yet we can assume that even out of those Jewish survivors of this siege, there were some who eventually turned to faith. That's probably what Jesus has in mind here. Dia, the preposition with the accusative, tous, eklektus, on account of the elect. These who are presumably unbelieving at the time, but would eventually become believers, is at least the way it's commonly taken. But on account of the elect. Same word here, kolobothesontai, again from koloboo. This is the future passive, third person plural. On account of the elect, they will be shortened. Future tense, hi hemerai, akenai, same construction. Those days will be shortened. So even though it was a grotesque and horrible moment in human history, it was surprisingly brief. The siege lasted 5 months, from April until August or so. And of course, if it had gone on longer, it's conceivable that everyone in the city would have died. But as it turns out, though it was horrific circumstances, there were a fair number that did survive ultimately.